Welcome to Le Grande Bouffe with my co-host Mike Lacy and myself Cole Smithey, where we copiously consume international culture and politics through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week.
What's helping us this week consume this movie? We got a Firestone Union Jack IPA.
Firestone Walker Union Jack IPA.
We're doing a lot of IPAs. You're a big IPA guy.
Yeah. This is pretty much an IPA shows. I didn't tell anyone that until now.
I just figured it out.
I'll come clean. Yeah, see, there you go. I was only able to pull the wool over Mike's eyes for 9 episodes.
Let's get a lager in here. But this is a good one.
We can do that. No, I love this one. And Firestone Walker, they're in California. Great brewery. Dave Walker, very, very nice guy. Donated the beer for Catherine and I's wedding a few years ago, and personally put the cases of beer in the trunk of our rental.
He sounds like
Mustang convertible.
He sounds like he wants to sponsor a podcast.
It could well be. It could well be. Maybe that's a conversation worth having. Yeah, but anyway, this Union Jack IPA is one of my favorites. It's a really hearty IPA. I don't know what the... Oh, this, 7.5. It's good. It's serious.
Was this his family crest here with the hops on the red?
Yeah, there's a story about and there's a story about the bear and the lion.
That looks like the California bear.
And one is his family, and the other is the Firestone family. But anyway,
is this Firestone of other products, or is it just?
I think it is the same Firestone family.
I
think so. That has the
with those great old tires.
That's right.
This isn't 10 years ago. We can't talk shit on Firestone tires. They're doing great.
All right. Well, I suppose it's time to have another sip of this wonderful Firestone Walker Union Jack IPA and get into the film of the week, which is
Brian De Palma's
Obsession. Mike came up with the idea that the Metrograph Cinema has been having a De Palma festival. They've shown everything.
There's a big De Palma thing going on.
Huge De Palma thing in New York City.
I don't get it, but I love it.
Yeah, it's good, and it makes me realize that there are a lot of De Palma movies that I haven't seen. I've seen movies like Sisters, and I've seen Blowout, but I haven't seen Blowout in so long. But of course, the movie that we're here to talk about is one that Paul Schrader wrote, which gives it, in case listeners don't know, that he's the guy who wrote Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, it's clearly an homage to Vertigo. They're thinking
and Rear
Window, yeah. But there's some unexpected twists, and certainly an ending that I can't wait to discuss.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not that much of Rear Window. I'm also thinking I also saw Body Double this weekend, and that just is a remake of Rear Window, basically, but certainly Vertigo in this one.
Yeah. And what was your overall take, Mike? What did you think?
Well, so I'm kind of coming at De Palma a bit fresh. I've probably seen like 4 De Palma movies before, and then so I'm gonna give like a little backstory for why I picked this, and then I had a little sort of history on De Palma, and I got to go to the Directors Guild last week, where Martin Scorsese introduced the Brian De Palma documentary, and De Palma presents himself as one of the only true students of Alfred Hitchcock, at least like in his filmography. He's really trying to go in that vein, and I thought that this was really, more than anything I can think of, like such a film in the milieu of Hitchcock movies, where the characters are kind of serving to continue this thriller, which has a bunch of misdirection and accelerating tension until a point where something is ultimately revealed, which you can kind of guess at. But even if you solve it, it's not about the mystery. It's about seeing that tension and that feeling of tension be resolved more than figuring out exactly what happened. And I think in terms of it being, we call this technically a thriller. Am I off base there, Cole?
Yeah, I'd call it a suspense thriller.
Suspense thriller.
I think that Vertigo is more of a psychological thriller, and this falls into more of a suspense thriller. But it certainly, the story certainly harkens to Daphne du Maurier, and she's the one who wrote, I think, The Birds, few things that Hitchcock based his films on, and also Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now, which is 1973 with Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. Their daughter dies in the beginning of the movie, and they end up going to Venice, where he is working in a church. He's like a architect guy. And so, and that movie was made in 73, 3 years before Obsession. And so there's similarities, I think, in the way that the film is shot. And because this is in New Orleans, Obsession is set in New Orleans, which I just find really interesting and great to look at, and really fun aspect.
It's a great town because you can shoot it as 1959, you can shoot it as 1975, and it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, and I love, when they use the church, and I've been to that church. Everyone who's been you ever been to New Orleans, you've been to that church that they show pretty prominently in the movie. I was let down and surprised and then a little bit shocked by this movie. I was let down by Cliff Robertson. I thought he was just terrible.
Really?
Yeah, and when I think of Don't Look Now and I think about Donald Sutherland, I think if you had Donald Sutherland in this role, this movie would have been amazing. But I felt like every scene that John Lithgow is in, he's just running circles around Cliff Robertson. John Lithgow's amazing in this movie.
Cliff Robertson felt like he's like a TV star getting a big break. And,
exactly. Yep.
He did have something kind of vacuous in his eyes that I think let me project a lot of ominousness into him. There's a point where you start wondering, is he a deeply disturbed evil mastermind, and that's been kept from you? And I think something about Robertson's kind of blankness and his stare and in this kind of like amorous glory that he has staring at people gave into that. But maybe that wasn't so much a choice as just good enough casting. I agree, John Lithgow is amazing. One thing that De Palma mentions is he's the only one who always casts Lithgow as a bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone else has him as just like a great guy, like a bureaucrat, someone trying hard. He's like, no, he's evil. Like, are you kidding me? Like, he's perfect for these things.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great actor. I've seen him on Broadway. He's always amazing. And I thought that Genevieve Bujold was perfectly cast. I really liked her in the role, or roles, shall we say, because we'll have to break a few plot spoiler eggs, as it were.
Yeah, let's throw out what this movie's about.
All right, you go for it.
Okay, so in the late 50s, a developer's wife and daughter are kidnapped. In a botched rescue attempt, they wind up dying. And then about 15 years later, he's got the same partner. They take a trip to Florence, where he runs into a woman who looks mysteriously exactly like his wife. And she's working in the church where they met. And soon enough, he's in love and brings her back to marry him. And then finds himself in a kidnapping scheme, which is startlingly similar.
So let's just cut to the chase a little bit, because a lot of the movie is about him rediscovering this woman who he identifies as the equal of his wife, his wife's doppelganger, and he, there's a courting period there, and then he brings her back to the States to his great mansion in New Orleans, and they're about to marry. It's the 70s. It's what is it? It's mid-70s. Well, now because when he comes back with the girl, it's 15 years later. So it's probably like 75. It's probably
it is 1975. They said it's 1975.
So here's my question. Sexual mores of the times, pretty open. Is there any way that he brings her back to live with him, to marry her, without having slept with her?
There's one line, and it felt like a studio exec needed this answered. There's one line where Lithgow's in the airport with his second wife and goes, "Well, at least you kept him out of bed." I did pick up on that. So it's
thanks. Yeah, you're quick to take notice of that. I missed that essential line.
Yeah, but it's such a throwaway that I feel like it's of course he would have banged her
repeatedly, and they are
are
intimate together.
Yeah,
they're
make
kissing
out.
And all this stuff.
Now we haven't said why that would be problematic.
No, and the thing is, the movie doesn't really say why that would be problematic either,
so
which
pretty
is
close to the end.
Which is pretty much right at the end. It kind of drops the bomb and says, "No harm, no foul."
Well, so I think what it does a great misdirect, and I think Schrader's really good at, and I think De Palma's using his Hitchcock chops very well, is it makes the crisis about something else. The crisis that she looks exactly like his wife, and you get a sense that Cliff Robertson is kind of a psycho, and there's something it's very unfair he's doing this.
No, it's a great payoff, but you need that coda where he's in jail. You need like the Psycho ending where he's in his jail cell, because we know that he killed his partner.
Yeah, that I really thought a lot about that. Leaving that is exactly there's no
and he has crossed familial, sexual, social taboo from which there is no return.
But isn't that a very De Palma-like thing to do, is to end it? The movie ends as if they're going to be happily ever after, like they've solved it. And you're right, like there is a very uncover-upable murder that's occurred. He's going to get screwed for that. He's not going to be happily married to this woman for reasons I assume we're going to give away at some point, but let's keep this going for a little while.
Well, the story, and also, how is she going to go on? She's the victim.
Right.
And she's really been victimized. I mean, she's the story. If you really want to know who the protagonist of this story is, it's Elizabeth, and she has two names in the story, which we'll get to why she has two identities. But Genevieve Bujold plays Elizabeth Cortland, and she also plays Sandra Portinari.
Which you pick up on right away, and you just assume it's because it's this woman, unfortunately looks the same. Schrader weaves in all of this sort of contextual fabric with Dante, who the history of Dante is, if you read the Inferno or La Vita Nuova, is he's in love with this woman Beatrice, and she's his like guiding angel, and she was a real woman. And they mention in the movie that Sandra mentions that she would go to the church where Dante would stare on Beatrice, which is a real church. Mm-hmm. I've been there.
Cool.
And I was really into Dante at the time, and I was totally bummed because this church is very like cheesy and like tourist trappy. But they're referencing all of this historical thing to set up this, what seems like the conflict is very psychological conflict, where there's an image that Sandra sets up where in this church, Beatrice, the woman he was actually in love with, would sit afar, and in between was the woman that Dante actually married. And I wrote one of my essays in college on Dante and was really into it, and I always felt terrible for this woman who, I think her name was Gemma, never mentioned in any of his books. It's the most famous, like, unrequited love affair in the history of literature between Dante and Beatrice. And the dude's got a real wife.
Right.
So that's what you feel like the tension is going to be between this image of his wife that is dead, that is perfect, and then this poor girl who is standing in between them, this little image of her. And and so it's also, this movie's Rebecca too, right? Like she comes home and there's paintings of this woman, and she breaks into the old master bedroom, and she's just
goes through all of her things, reads her diaries, all of that stuff.
And Cliff Robertson's looking crazier and crazier.
Yeah, and just the terrible hair. He has the worst
Yeah.
hair. It's real, but it just is. It looks like a bad toupee, and it's way too bushy. But another thing, a very important aspect of this movie, my favorite aspect of this movie, really, is the way it is shot. Vilmos Zsigmond, cinematographer, great cinematographer, did Deer Hunter and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Deliverance. The movie has this great romantic atmosphere where everything, all the scenes feel just a little foggy. It's almost as though the whole film is a reverie. You're looking through a filter, a nostalgic filter, and I thought that really brought a great stylistic life to the film.
Yeah, it's almost the filmmaking more than anything else. The cinematography gave this like element of like Gatsby too, where right, you're reflecting back on when things were great, and having just seen Body Double, which also has the main character obsessed with a woman who looks like another woman that he has feelings for. You're seeing this through line in De Palma's like oeuvre there, and this is doing a great job of like when we have these flashbacks, they're too idealized in a way. There's this scene where his first wife Elizabeth walks in on him, and he's got his like 70s man bod, you know, which is like, you know, like the closest you get is just like John Hamm now, who like I think replicates that bod. And she walks in, and she just seems like in awe of him.
Oh
like,
yeah, that's the great seduction scene. Yeah, right before they're gonna get busy.
Yeah, and right before she gets disapparated, and so it's a memory. It's a perfect memory. It's not presented as a flashback, but you have a sense that this is Cliff Robertson's imagination of how perfect things were.
All right, so let's just say it. There's no way this guy didn't sleep with this woman who looks exactly like his wife. There's no way.
Why wouldn't
he comes on strong.
They would have like if that was supposed to be in the movie that they didn't sleep together, they would have had to hammer that down so hard. They would have been.
They're sleeping together. They're in bed together every night for more than a few nights. What do you think is happening?
75, like
75.
You feel like
that was
would show them banging too. Like it's kind of it felt like they cut out the banging scenes and added one line.
Well, it's important. I think it's significant the way that this has come into the conversation, because I think if you went for it, you had the full-on gnarly sex scene, which there's a great sex scene in Don't Look Now between Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, which was really groundbreaking at the time and shocked a lot of people. If you had the equivalent of that sex scene in this movie, then when the bomb goes off, when the plot bomb goes off at the end, then you'd have to have the actors express that, and that's what's missing from this movie.
Well, the other element too that I feel like would come up is what is motivating Sandra. And so it's kind of revealed that she's a bit of a con artist, and she's running this heist on a man who she believes she has a vendetta against. So I guess you couldn't really explain away why she would sleep with him, given who she is. But you could explain by that her motivations to screw this guy over and to like lead him on.
Well, certainly that would really, by modern standards, that would still be shocking. But if you could show,
it would also be a borderline plot hole. I feel like
no, but I think that's the answer to the movie. Is I think you have to see. I mean, you've never seen that in a movie. You've never seen a character so willing to take revenge, so hungry for revenge that they will commit incest with their own father.
So the woman Sandra is actually the kidnapped daughter who was kidnapped by, we learned from flashbacks, John Lithgow,
right,
who was running this scam the whole time. And when Cliff Robertson didn't actually put fake money in the ransom briefcase along with like a homing beacon,
right,
to
homing
find,
device, yeah,
to find them. He had the wife was killed, and the daughter was, I'm not sure
how she escaped.
I'm not sure how or why she gets away. Yeah, but
no, that's not explained.
Yeah, but she's brought onto a plane and sent to Italy to.
Oh no, you know why? Because when the kidnappers split up, they take the mom and they leave the daughter with the guy in the house.
Okay.
That's what happened at the beginning. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why.
And then all the cops.
So
and
the
everybody
daughter
follow
isn't
them.
in the car that explodes.
Some real crappy FBI work.
Well, it's some real crappy cop work. How do they how could they let those guys get away? Well, and the thing
So
is,
print some
well, the
fake
thing in
money.
the-
Don't
in the
just
hou-
put banknotes in there. Print some fake money.
There's like 10 cop cars surrounding the house, but somehow the guys are able to get in their car and drive off. Couldn't you just, I don't know, pull your car up behind there so they can't back out? I mean, what amount of common sense do you need?
It's New
There
Orleans.
are
It's New
plot
Orleans,
holes.
1959.
Yeah, and I guess nothing ever changes. But there are some plot holes.
But so the daughter was rushed off to Italy and raised with some of John Lithgow's associates. It's not really explained who these people are.
But he's fluent. John Lithgow speaks great Italian in this movie.
And we make a big deal. Yeah, no. And so
He's so obviously a villain. He's so villainous.
yeah, that's the thing is like
He's always wearing white.
I
and
don't-
He has all the affectations.
I don't know
of
if I like
Nolan's
give-
attorney.
give De Palma credit for thinking Lithgow's obviously a villain, like in this movie especially, but I think about it, he's obviously a villain, and in this one it's almost problematic that from the first second I was like, oh, this is a bad guy. From the first scene in on their 10th anniversary, Cliff Robertson, his wife Elizabeth, and Lithgow's there, I was like, all right, this guy's gonna fucking kill somebody. Like, this is creepy as hell.
I don't know. This is how I feel when I come away from De Palma films. And I know that there's a school out there that thinks that De Palma is the great hidden secret, and this better than he was filmmaker, better than he is filmmaker. The truth of the matter is, he's not. He's almost better than average. There's always problems with De Palma films, is what I always feel. And I think that, probably Casualties of War is an exception. There are exceptions. I think Scarface is a terrific film. But I think this film is more in line with his typical films. He did this remake a few years ago of, I guess it was a French movie. And I just thought, I had seen the original, and it's called Film Fatale is the name of the remake, and I thought it was, is that what it's called? Is that the one? No,
Yeah, he
that's
made
the
a
wrong
movie
one.
called Femme Fatale with.
No, this is a different one. It's a Passion. Sorry, Passion. Is
Oh, the
film.
one like a couple years ago. Yeah,
Couple
Femme Fatale
years
was probably
ago.
like 12 years ago now.
Yeah, remake, and I just thought, it was bereft of any passion.
So I'm, in a sense, one of these people that's looking at De Palma and being like, is he like the missing piece of the 70s movement? Well,
I think your real question
credit.
is he the missing piece of the Hitchcock movement?
Yeah, and so that's my second question.
And here's what I say. I think that Claude Chabrol is the answer to that question. And I think Claude Chabrol is at least equal to, if not better than, De Palma.
I don't know Claude Chabrol. Is that
He did a movie called La Cérémonie,
Yeah.
which it's such a great social satire about class, and it has all of the suspense, and it has this miraculous climax. It has these qualities that Hitchcock films had, but without hitting the nail on the head. Never hitting never touching it on the nose. Just he clearly
the nail being the Hitchcock influence or the heavy-handedness in the plot.
If you come into this movie expecting it to be influenced by Hitchcock, you'll see all of the Hitchcockian influence over it. We're talking about De Palma's obsession. And maybe even if you don't know anything about that connection, you'll sense it. And that's good. I like that. I just think that De Palma gets too much credit for being the only one. Claude Chabrol was called the French Hitchcock for good reason.
In the Hitchcock student world, he may get more credit than he's due, but I really do think he is a bit of a forgotten figure in the role that he played. I mean, as Scorsese mentioned, and this is not to give him credit perhaps as being a great filmmaker, but it is interesting that historically he is important. he's the person who introduced Robert De Niro and Paul Schrader to Scorsese, and he fits.
Oh yeah, culturally he's hugely influential.
Yeah, that's kind
and
of.
also, don't get me wrong, I'm not beating up De Palma. I like a lot of De Palma films. I'd watch Blowout right this minute, and I think that Scarface is an amazing movie. And when I was working in San Diego at a little cinema walking distance from my house, I watched Scarface over and over, and I'd go in, I'd certainly catch the last 20 minutes of that movie. But that's an amazing, that's a masterpiece. Scarface is a masterpiece for sure.
This is certainly, even from just the limited ones that I've seen, minor De Palma, to break it down to that. But I found it very entertaining in a week where I watched several De Palma movies. This one was definitely, what my takeaway from it was the experience that I had.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I have with movies, is there are ones that I'll think about for weeks and become a part of me, and I want to watch over and over again. And there are ones that I had an experience which was better than the one I would have had not seeing it.
Oh yeah,
that are great.
No, that's that's the nature of cinema, and that's absolutely the thing that movie lovers, I think, hunger for, is to be able to go into a movie like this where there's a lot of quirky things, and the time that you spend enjoying those and considering those and just living in that world is awesome.
And I found myself hunched in my chair and just I could point out plot holes, and I agree Cliff Robertson is it's no wonder that he's a bit forgotten now in cinema history. But I was like on the edge of my seat that entire movie. And
the ending's great, and I gotta say, there's that homage to the Kubrick film where the briefcase of money has to be split open. Yeah. Cash has to fly everywhere.
Yeah, and if you're not going to be shocked by the relationship that Robertson has with his daughter, you're going to be shocked like I was by where the movie ends, which is them reuniting as if they're lovers that are finally getting to be together. It is purposely disturbing in a couple accounts, so it kind of anyone who's coming in there trying to get just sort of a cool mystery thriller, you're going to be uncomfortable in a very 70s way.
Oh yeah, you're going to get it good. But I always love seeing cash flying around an airport. The Killing, running. That's the Kubrick movie. The 1956 Kubrick movie, where the cash just goes flying all across the tarmac. It's amazing. It's not quite the tarmac. This is more of an O.J. Simpson running through the airport kind of situation. But anytime that you are showing me loads of hard cash flying around for anyone to grab, count me in.
Well, that was Obsession. Brian De Palma's 1975 Hitchcockian-ish, maybe not the most Hitchcockian,
but written by Paul Schrader.
Written by the great Paul Schrader.
And shot by the incredible, incomparable Vilmos Zsigmond cinematographer. We've been getting drunk on Firestone Walker Union Jack IPA, 7.5 ABV. I can't recommend this beer
every point of that
enough. This is great IPA. Talk to you guys next week. Signing off from Le Grande, Bouffe,
The Big Feast.
you.